Good evening and welcome to the Villages Local Partnership. This is the first meeting of the local partnership that has been held remotely, and I must also confirm that it is being recorded. This is an important step for the local partnership. As you know, we are not able to hold meetings in public and at our usual location due to the government guidance on public health measures to tackle the COVID-19 emergency. Therefore, it is important that we take those steps available to us to make the proceedings of this local partnership open to scrutiny. And I can advise that the recording of this meeting will be available to watch on Renfrewshire Council's website following the meeting. To ensure that the meeting proceeds efficiently, there are some additional points that I need to bring to your attention. These are: it is important when meetings are being recorded that it is only the person who is speaking who has their microphone on. This is because on the recording, if the noise from another microphone is picked up, the picture on the recording may move to the sources of that noise and detract from the speaker. For the same reason, it is important that there is a short pause between speakers to enable the camera to adjust to the new speaker. Anyone who wishes to speak should indicate this in the show conversation instant message where possible, and this will be brought to my attention. The content of any show conversation instant message sent on the Teams system will be shown on the recording. Members who are accessing by phone only should also put their phones on mute when not addressing the meeting. Before moving on to the agenda, can I ask that the clerk do a roll call of members so that it is clear who is present on the recording?
Thanks, Chair. Tonight at the meeting we have Anne-Marie Balfour, Councillor Derek Bibby, Councillor Bill Binks, David Blair, Councillor Jacqueline Cameron, Sandy Clark, Councillor Andy Doig, Councillor Audrey Doig, yourself, Councillor Natalie Dolan, Councillor Alison Dowling, we have Margaret Dundas, Meg Gilzane, Stuart Graham, Nigel Hobbs, Councillor John Hoot, Councillor Alistair Mackay, Councillor James McLaren, Councillor Colin McCulloch, Stirling McGee, we have Alan McNiven, we have Linda O'Malley, Oliver Reid, Councillor Emma Rodden, Councillor Andy Steele, Brenda Whitelaw, we have Tracy Slater, Caroline Tolan, Robert Agnew and Ross Anderson is representing Lucknow Community Council tonight. And also we have Sergeant Kevin McGee from Police Scotland.
Thanks, Elaine. Now we can move on to the agenda. Before we move on to the agenda, I do just want to reiterate the point. If anybody does have a question, I would appreciate if you could pop it in the meeting chat box rather than the raise your hand, because that way it's just so much easier to see the order that the questions are coming in, and it's easier for me to keep track of. So if that's possible, that would be great. First item, do we have any apologies?
Thanks, Chair. I have apologies from James Fletcher, Fiona Stewart and Heather Cunningham.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Yes, from myself, Linda O'Malley. We've got a grant application in, Raise of Hope.
Thanks, Linda. Any other declarations?
Yes, I did put in the chat box, but I thought it might miss out. Yes, it's David Blair here. I represent Renfrewshire Scouts, and there's an application from Bridge of Weir Scouts, which sits within the district. And whether I need to declare it or not, the Kilbarchan Improvement Projects as an application for funding, I retired or resigned as their treasurer in March, so just in case there's any conflict there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Anne-Marie, I see you want to speak.
No, it was just to say I'm part of Eldersley Community Council who have applied for some grants.
Okay, I think that's everyone. We'll move on to the minute of the last meeting. Can we agree the minute? Yep.
I believe someone's sharing their screen, possibly
Yeah.
by accident.
I was just going to say I can't see any nods of agreement, so if we could hold off.
Could we just ask who's sharing their screen?
At the top of the screen, there should be a bit that says stop content or something like that. It's a square with an X on it. It's at the moment we've got Boggle or something.
Yeah.
There's a Miss Dundas who seems to have a name at the bottom of the black screen.
I have a problem. It says can't display content. There was a problem with displaying the content. I don't know if that's anything to do with it.
Yeah, I've got that now.
Okay.
I've got it now as well.
Can't just content. I got that as well.
So, can we ask to stop sharing the screen? Is that possible?
Convener, how would I know if I was sharing my screen? I don't know.
There is a button on the little action bar that says open share tray. It's when you click that, I believe, that the screen starts to share. So it should, if you look at that, it should say stop sharing screen or something along the lines of that. I don't believe it's yourself.
That's it, cleared. It's cleared now.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Technical hitches, bear with us. Okay, so can we agree the minute of the last meeting? Brilliant. Agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, now on to the difficult bit. So you obviously will have received a proposal from myself this afternoon. I'm just going to speak to that for a second, and then I am happy to take any questions afterwards. So the proposal I've put together focuses on the relevance to the priorities that we have set out at previous meetings. Whether they're multi-applications or not, and I know there's been some issues around that before. The proposal will see all relevant applications receive 70% of their total, which is a huge amount in comparison to what was received by groups last year. We are once again oversubscribed, and I think that this is a fair way to do it again. There is a little bit of leeway, as you can see, so I am happy to have, obviously this is a partnership, so we can have a discussion on any which members wish either not to receive funding or believe that they should receive funding. But as stated, I do feel I have emphasised the importance of the priorities in these grants. Now, obviously we are in a strange situation this year, so I do think I think it's necessary to leave a small amount in the pot, because we don't know what's going to happen later in the year. There may be more groups set up, there may be groups need funding because of issues, external issues. So, and we may also see monies come back, from certain groups, depending on what does happen later in the year, depending on restrictions, etc., etc. So that is my proposal, and I'm happy to take questions on it. So I see first we have Alistair, Councillor Mackay.
Hello, I'd just like to put formally on record that you've done a sterling job again, as you did last year, whittling down the applications to a sensible level. And I'd just like to congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair, again. Thank you. Meg, do you want to come in on your comment?
Yes, the Christmas lights events that you've got for FR1070, which was the November Panto for the drama group, that's unlikely to go ahead. I know that Houston Community Council have already announced via Facebook that they will not be doing their Christmas light switch on this year. And the only other thing that I had a comment was going to raise was one I'd sent to yourself earlier, was, for example, Bridge of Weir Festival got money last year to run Gala Day and the Santa Sleigh for this year. We didn't apply again this year because they had assumed that we would just carry the money over, that we had anything we had left over to use for next year. We're still in, the festival is still in discussion with the group, and we're going to take guidance from Renfrewshire Council on what we can do with the Santa Sleigh for this year. So that was just my comment.
Thanks, Meg. No, I do take your points about the Christmas light switch on, and that was something that I had considered. What I was thinking was, when I was looking at what the money was actually going to be spent on for the Christmas lights, well, for Elders, I know for Elderslie, I'm just looking at specifically right now, it wasn't for the event as such, it was for things like banners and stuff like that. So I had thought it would be okay to grant the funding just now. We had obviously, as a partnership, contacted each of the organisations to find out if things were still going ahead, and feedback was got from that, and that obviously resulted in one of the events being in group 4 at the bottom. So I would be minded to grant them, and the partnership could work with them. I mean, I'm not sure if the whole Christmas light switch on will be totally cancelled. I can't see groups and lots of people, but are we just not going to have any Christmas lights on this year? So is there anything else that groups could do for money? So I was hoping that, as I say, we could grant that just now and discuss it with the groups as we go along, and if they don't go ahead, the money will come back to the partnership and can either be distributed out to the groups on a kind of proportional basis, as we have done with the 70%, or it could go to new applications. That was just my thinking with it. In terms of the second point with the fundraising committee from last year, obviously I know you contacted me directly about that. And it is the way with partnerships that if the money doesn't get spent, it comes back to the partnership. And that's been something that we have for other groups kind of spoke about in the past. I'm not sure if, given the circumstances, maybe that's something that we could discuss with the officers. I don't know, can I bring perhaps one of the officers in? Is there any leeway around this because of the strange circumstances we found ourselves in?
Thanks, Councillor Dawn. Stuart Graham speaking. What we can do is go and sort of have a word with our colleagues in legal and see what the rules and regulations are around about that, and if there is any flexibility given the situation that we're currently in. So we can do that.
Okay, Meg, is that okay? And are you happy with sort of my explanation of the Christmas events?
Yes, I'm happy that, but as I say, the one, you know, the panto for Calder Drama Club, as I say, they won't be able to put on a panto.
Yeah.
But regarding the Bridge of Weir Festival, as I say, we didn't apply again this year because we thought we'd be able to move the money. So I'll hear back from yourselves regarding the legal side of that. But as I say, we're still hoping to put the Santa Sleigh on in this year, hope in some form.
Can I just note, in terms of the Calder Drama Club, because I know they won't be able, well, they obviously might not be able to put the pantomime on, but it does say in the report, if the club can't go ahead with the funding in November, it would be used for their March production as part of the Arts Festival. So they have put in an alternative, but obviously if that can't be used for that, it will come back to the partnership again. So I hope that helps. Okay, who have we got next? Sorry, bear with me. There's quite a few questions popped up, so I'm just going to scroll my chat back. Councillor Doig, did you have a question? Yes.
Speak. To help, can you hear me? Okay. to help the officers with this, can we not decide as an organisation that the applications for money for Christmas lights or well, you've explained the panto, but for the Christmas lights, that we automatically move them to apply for next year's without reapplying, as in that their application will be valid for this year and next year. And that way it would take a wee bit money back on this year's and basically do that. It would just make more sense for them automatically to be able to apply for next year.
Yep, Councillor McLaren, do you want to come on in that specific point? That's fine.
Thank you. My point is that I don't see that there should be a problem in putting up Christmas lights. In fact, I would say, given the current situation that we're in, the more merry we look, the better, so to speak. We need something like Christmas lights. It's the festivities around the Christmas lights that probably won't go ahead, but the Christmas lights themselves, I think, should go up. And if there's an application for Christmas lights, then I would be all for granting it. But I do have another point, if I could come in later about that, please.
But to reply to that, most of the money that has been asked for is not for the lights, because the lights get put up with the council. It's mostly for the festivities and the switch on night that the money is used for, not for putting up the actual lights.
Okay, well, I'm happy in the situation where, as I say, Houston Community Council, I wasn't aware that wasn't going ahead. So I'm happy in the situation where the events are not going ahead and that has been planned and there's no alternative in place for the officer, if it's possible for the officers to look at rolling that over to next year, and then the funding would come back to the partnership in the meantime. That would be fine. Okay, so sorry, I see a couple of people have got their hands up, and I'm just wondering, are they coming in on these specific points? Councillor Hood, if you want to go ahead.
Right, thank you. First of all, I'm having problems with the messaging side. I can see the messages, but I can't put anything on that. But I can continue on anyway. I definitely think the Christmas lights have to go back up, definitely, because we've got everybody's down as it is, and if they don't see things sort of like that coming on, I think it would be even worse. I think most groups, like community councils who have put in for the monies for Christmas events, can definitely put them to some good use, because most community councils have been doing a fantastic job during the COVID-19. So I think the community council groups and the groups that are coming in for money should still get the money. No, did you get that already? Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just waiting on it unmuting.
Right.
No, I think that's fine. I think that kind of goes with what we've just said, that if we speak to the groups and nothing's going ahead, the money comes back. But if, as you say, there is still scope for some form of something, then yeah, absolutely, that they should still get their funding, and that's why I've included them in that table. Right, sorry, I've got a couple of hands. Is it possible, if you don't have a question, can you put your hand back down? See, James, you've still got your hand up. I've got you in the comments box. And Councillor Dowling, did you want to come in on this specific point?
Hi.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay,
Hi,
thanks.
Alison.
Sorry about that. I wanted to kind of add to this discussion. A lot of the bids that we've got in are quite modest and they're under £1,000. And I think it would be appropriate to consider giving all of that over to those bids. So if you've basically applied for under £1,000, we should give them a total around 70%. So we could maybe add that into the considerations in relation to any underspend we might have because of Christmas lights or any other reason. That would be great. Could I also add, I also can't use my dialogue box, so sorry I can't give you written questions, Natalie. It's not working at my end either. Thanks.
Okay, no worries. On that point, last year you'll remember that I did do that. We put the proposal forward that if the group had applied for £1,000 or under, that they would get the full amount. Now, I remember at the partnership last year, and just some comments I got after it, that some people questioned whether that was fair or not, because if you applied for £1,050, you ended up with 40% of what was allocated of what you applied for. But if you applied for £999, you got the full amount. So I would still be minded to do it the way that I have, but if a majority feel otherwise, then I'm happy to go the other way. It's just we will need to sort of look into the figures again if we do that.
Councillor Dawn, you're still muted.
Very sorry about that. Councillor McLaren, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm going to relieve you of that if you're coming in this point again.
I have a question about an individual application.
Right, okay, can you hold off on that just now?
Okay.
Keep your hand up and I'll know, not your real hand, but your little virtual hand, and I'll get to you.
I think there's a few hands up. I think we have Nigel Hobbs and Sandy Clark.
I'm going to take the two hands, so we'll take Nigel and then Sandy, and then I'm going to get back to the conversation. So can we have Nigel, please?
Yeah, hi. I know you can't see me, but can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I did try using the chat, but my comment has appeared, but without my name against it, so I don't know quite why that's not working. I just wanted to comment on Houston Christmas light switch on, as that has been a topic of conversation. As chair of Houston Community Council, I'm probably in a reasonable position to tell you what's happening. Now, we have cancelled the light switch on event, but as Councillor Don quite rightly said, there's a lot of other activities that we will still be going ahead with. We run Christmas motif, the light motifs, switch on light motif competition with both primary schools in the village, where they design a new motif to put up on the street lights. And that is currently running. We get the competition through next week, and we will judge it. And that still incurs costs of around about £1,500 to get these designed and made. We've then got the Christmas lights that go on the Christmas trees. We have to pay electricians. So, as Councillor Don quite rightly said, you know, we might have cancelled the event, but there's still a lot of things that we intend doing to brighten the village up over Christmas. And I think with everything that's going on at the moment, it's important that we do that. And we try and get the Christmas spirit going in the village. So as much as we may not need all of the money, and I know we have already written to Donna to confirm some of the things that we were going to do, we can't do because of the COVID situation. But a lot of the things that we intended doing, we will carry on and do. So it wouldn't be a case for us of not wanting our grant application in this year and referring it to next year. We certainly want it in this year because we've already started the competitions and are planning to spend some of the money. So hopefully that clarifies the fact that we have cancelled the event Switch On, but a lot of the other things that go on in the background we will continue with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take Sandy next.
Good evening. Bridget Weir Community Council, we withdrew our application on the basis that around about the time when Renfrewshire Council announced that the Christmas lights events and switch-ons would be cancelled. However, there was a comment at that time that said they would continue with the lights. It would still be on. We felt that our committee, we weren't able to go around the various places we deal with, so we withdrew. So if Councillor Doig's suggestion that funding continues on to next year, I would hope our application would be taken favourably within that.
With that, I would need to bring one of the officers in just to confirm if that, obviously you had your application in but you withdrew it, so I would assume... We
withdrew it at the time of when they asked for the update. So we had a discussion between members and we decided to withdraw because we didn't feel we'd be able to organise it ourselves this year.
I think if the officers were minded to agree something like that, it would obviously come down to a partnership agreement, and I think it's understandable that you withdrew it. Yeah, I would ask the partnership if they would agree, but I'll ask Stuart first if that would be possible.
Yeah, I was just taking a note of that there, Sandy. I get your point that because you've withdrawn your application earlier when we asked you if you were going ahead or not, you don't want to be disadvantaged next year because of that. So I'll take a note of that just now, and hopefully we can, when we move forward, we can make sure that that's taken into account.
Thank you.
Okay, I know Alistair, your hand is up. Councillor Mackay, sorry. I think that's the last hand, and then as I say, I'll get back to the chat box.
Okay, thanks very much. I've been listening to what's going on. I think if we stick to the 70% as you've suggested, and then looked at any funds that weren't going to be used for light switch-ons, and then that was shared amongst those that have got 70% rather than sharing it amongst new additions to the funding group. That might be a better way. As for carrying forward funds to next year, I think that might cause more problem than it solves, insofar as that we don't know what's going to be around next year. We don't know how much funds we're going to have. And to sort of say, well, we'll allocate it to next year's Christmas fund, Christmas light switch on, isn't perhaps such a good idea. I think we should wait to nearer the time next year's funding applications. That's my thoughts.
Thanks. I think these are all fair points, but I think perhaps that these are maybe decisions that we can't make tonight. And as a partnership, we're going to have to come back to, and whether that's via email or whether we have another meeting to discuss this at a later date, depending on the outcome of the current crisis and dependent on the outcome of Christmas light switch-ons, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm absolutely happy to carry these discussions on. So I think the next comment was Councillor Rodden.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly support the proposals that you've put forward. I think 70% is a fair amount, and as you say, it's a lot more than groups got last year. So hopefully the groups that are in receipt of funds will be happy with that. But I would ask that as much support as possible is given to the groups that aren't going to be successful tonight. In particular, the larger applications for like active schools in Howwood Primary, and that's a large amount they've asked for. So if they could possibly be given as much support as possible, so that they're able to find other funding streams in order for them to carry on with their project.
Absolutely, and I'll ask the officers to take that away, depending on, as long as this is agreed tonight, whatever applicants don't receive funding, absolutely they should receive support for funding elsewhere. Okay, so Stirling, I've got your question here. I can answer that for you just now, and then I'm happy to bring you in after if you want to talk on it. The basis behind that was essentially there's certain things that the partnership obviously want to fund, and there's certain priorities that we need the funds to fit into. And I'm just not sure that an application for a laptop is something that we can say really does fit in with the priorities. As I say, I'm happy to bring you in this, and then I'm happy to bring in comments from elsewhere on it.
I was just looking at the applications which you have proposed that we do fund, and I tend to agree with you to some degree there. And again, just to echo what everyone else has said, I'm very happy with the 70% and good job with that. But I've noticed that we do fund a lot of running costs. And given that you have proposed that we fund a lot of running costs, and given that the application is for just £539 and it is a capital purchase of laptop, a printer, and a laminator, it seems like a small amount to that personally. Anyway, that's my sort of view on that.
Okay, thanks, and thanks for your comments. Does anybody have, I've still obviously got a list of people here that are wanting to come in separately, but does anybody have any comments on this specific point? So I think we've got, who have we got here? Councillor Mackay.
Yes, I'm just wondering, I noticed that the Girls Brigade and also Elderslie Community Council have applied for laptops. Is this something that maybe the council might be able to provide on a loan basis? I know in past the councils provided a laptop for community councils and some other organisations. I'm just wondering whether that's something that could be provided to the organisations from the council direct rather than going through this local area partnership funding application.
I would need to bring one of the officers in on that.
Thanks, Councillor Dawn. Thanks for raising that point. Councillor Mackay, in terms of community councils, they do receive a grant for administration purposes, so it's for purposes such as those. So essentially, that one's covered. I don't really have any knowledge if the council has any IT equipment that it can provide to organisations sort of directly in that sense. But certainly the previous point about supporting organisations to seek other funding sources, we would look to do that if there are other opportunities available for those sorts of purchases.
Thanks, Stuart. Anne-Marie, did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? So I know, obviously, being from Elderslie, Elderslie Girls Brigade do a lot of good work in the community, and I know that they are in desperate need of being able to administer stuff. They've done team up to cleanups. They do carols singing around the old people's homes and stuff like that. So I know that they definitely have a need for this, if that helps at all.
Councillor Dawn, I think you're back.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Okay, I've got another couple of points on this. I think Councillor Doig.
Hi, convener. It was just to stress that I think Councillor Dowling's point is not unreasonable at first sight, about applicants 1,000 and over, 1,000 and under rather. My preference would be, I think, for the 70% formula that you've outlined, simply because there's a number of big applications here that are really quite necessary. For example, there's Auchwenach Primary and also Howwood Primary, which are educational and relating to the support of children, which I think is really important. Also, in the case of Auchwenach Arts Festival, it's the largest community arts festival in Renfrewshire, and they've repeatedly tried to get chef funding from the Leadership Board and been refused. So in fact, the LAP is really their last port of call. So I think it's really quite important that we go for the 70% formula overall, because I think it would be fairer to the larger applicants. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any further points on, sorry, the question over whether we should go fund the laptop in the Girls Brigade point specifically? I do not see any other hands up or anyone commenting in the box. So, okay, well, as I say, Stirling, I do take your point that we are funding other running costs. I think the way that I had looked at it was some of the running costs are for sort of elderly forums and things that maybe don't have the same ability to fundraise. It is a small application, so if the partnership are minded, then we can put that into the first box to be granted. How do people feel about that? Just a thumbs up or a thumbs down would be okay. I see a few thumbs up. James, I see you've got a question. Is it on this point? I take it, yeah. Go ahead.
Convener, I anticipate that there'll be some money left over at the end, and I think you might well find that that money could be used to make up the difference in this case.
Yeah, you mean to go ahead with this application to pop it into the first group, yeah?
Well, what you've sent leaves a balance outstanding as far as I can see anyway. The remaining balance 4,461. So there's extra money there already. So if everyone's minded, I don't think there's a problem in making up the difference. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. I will take the other questions on that. As I say, I'm absolutely fine if the partnership are agreed to go ahead with that and move that into the other section to be granted. So thanks, Stirling. I think we do have a couple of points on that. I've got Anne-Marie. I'll take you first. Oh,
if it makes it any easier for you, you've granted us 490 of, well, 70% of 700, which is 490 for seating at Dunvegan. We can take that to the green spaces, so that can come out the pot, and that'll cover Elderslie Girls Brigade.
I think we don't need to go down that route. We obviously I didn't really touch on that, but there is a table for green spaces, and that is funds that we have, or that I have asked officers to sort of run by and make sure that they would be applicable for the green spaces fund. I don't know if that small application would be appropriate for that, which is why it's been left in with this pile. So as Councillor McLaren's pointed out, that we do have an excess, so happy for that to just be granted along with the others, the Elderslie girls. So Councillor Doig, is this a point on this? No, right. Okay, I don't see any other comments for this specific point. I see lots of agreements. Councillor Steele, I believe you're the next. And then I'll take Councillor Doig.
Thank you, convener. I hope you can hear me. It's just in the light of the decision we've just made, and you'll hate me for stirring the pot a wee bit more, it might be worthwhile revisiting the application from Elderslie CC for a lesser amount for a secretary laptop and printer. Throw that one out there and see how people feel.
Again, I think with this one, I had popped that into that pile just because there is a lot of applications from Elderslie Community Council, all of which are for really positive projects, really good things. But again, it's something that perhaps could be fundraised for. I wasn't sure if that was directly relevant to our priorities, but having agreed the other one, then obviously we can discuss that. So I have quite a few hands up for this point, so I can see Alistair first. Councillor Mackay.
Yes, I go back to my previous comment where the council officers said that they make an allocation to the community councils for laptops, and I see there's somebody in the I'm just thinking, historically they managed to get a laptop out of the council. I'm wondering whether again they could get a laptop out of the council without affecting this local partnership funding.
Yeah, absolutely. I take that point. I mean, I think you covered this in your last point, Stuart. So I think that would perhaps lean us towards not granting that application. Happy to bring in other folk on this. I think we've got Sterling.
Yeah, it was just a wider point. Obviously, I think that's kind of a special case there because it's a community council that's applying for it and there's funds specifically available to that. But I've just had a bit more of a thorough look through it, and we've decided to do things like fund the expansion of the Bridge of Weir Scout Group for £6,000, and that is under the basis that it's access to services. So I think if we're comfortable, and I'm not saying wrongly, but if we are comfortable in defining that as access to services, then surely capital costs for small things like laptops are more easily funded and very realistically viewed as access to services as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I take that point. Absolutely. Councillor Hood.
Was it not the case, this is a question for Stuart, was it not a case that the council got laptops for tenants associations and community councils through a procurement, which made it a lot cheaper for which likes of groups to purchase the laptops? And could the council not go down that route for these groups that are looking for laptops and computers?
Thanks, Councillor Hood. I don't know the detail of the procurement of the laptops for community councils, etc. I'm sure that we do procure quite a lot of equipment like that, but I'm sorry, I don't know the detail of that. That I could do. I mean, I can try and find out for you if that's something that we could look at. Yeah, we'll look at that then.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, bear with me. Who else have we got? Councillor Hood, you have. Councillor McLaren, did you want to come in this point? No. Councillor Doig, you weren't on this point either? We are.
Okay. Hi, sorry, convener. It was just to say that, yeah, I think Councillor Hood's making a really valid point that in the 8 years that I've been a councillor and involved with up to 4 community councils in my ward, they've always been able to get support for items like laptops via the council's IT procurement processes. So Councillor Hood's entirely right. So I think it's just a case of we give Elderslie CC the support to to point them and to signpost them to the correct officer and help that to happen for them. Thanks.
We've got Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to sit on the fence like a typical politician and leave it, the decision to the chair. But I think I was just thinking about in terms of consistency, if we're saying that capital grants don't meet the criteria, we maybe have to look at consistency in that, maybe just even for future funding meetings. And so I've listened to what everybody said about the fact that there are grants available for community councils for laptops. So I'm going to leave the decision up to you, Chair. But yeah, I think that we should have a wee think about consistency if we're saying that the actual equipment doesn't meet the criteria. That was all.
Yeah, I think it's a special circumstance because it's a community council, as it's been pointed out. I would be minded to grant the Elderslie Girls application and I don't like to say refuse, but not grant the Elderslie Community Council application and divert them to the appropriate funding or support as has been discussed. I've still got a couple of people who think wanting to come in this point. So Anne-Marie, I can't have, I wouldn't be asking, are you speaking on Elderslie Community Council?
I was just going to put it to bed and say I'll withdraw it and talk to the girls about taking it out the main admin.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice, thank you. Okay, great. Sandy, I know you want to come in this, but we've kind of got a resolution. Are you still wanting to come in?
Yeah, I'm very surprised to hear that the procurement's covering the community councils, because a number of years ago we were supplied laptops and they were maintained by Renfrewshire Council. That was withdrawn and £100 was put onto our annual budget for IT equipment, which was not sufficient. However, we all seem to manage with using our own, and secretary gets cover, whatever. So the Elderslie application I'm not against, but I'm warning you are opening floodgates with that one. All the organisations will want a laptop.
Okay, and finally, I just have James's hand up. I did ask you a second ago if you were wanting to come in, or are you? Is this a different point?
Sorry, no, I want to make a comment about Lamont Farm project, but whenever you want, I'll come in on that.
All right, Jean. You got another Gary? What did it say about Isla playing?
Okay, well, as I say, I've taken everybody's points just for clarity. I just want to confirm that we have decided we are granting the Elderslie Girls Brigade application, and the Elderslie CC one has been withdrawn. Okay, I will bring Councillor McLaren in now.
Thank you. So yes, we have an application from Lamont Farm project. They're looking for £4,000. You're proposing to give them 2,800. My point is that Lamont Farm isn't in the villages area, it being in Erskine. We discussed this last night at the Erskine local partnership, Erskine, Bishopton, Langbank, whatever it's called. And there were questions raised at the time about why are they coming back every year looking for large sums of money, and is it being run properly? You can confirm that, I'm sure, convener, and maybe some clarity might be required. But my question is, having lived in Bridge of Weir nearly all my life, I didn't know very much about Lamont Farm, and I was wondering how other people feel about this. Do they have connections with Lamont Farm in Erskine? Have they ever been there? Is it something we should be fundraising as it's outside our area? That's my main point. Thank you.
Okay, I will bring a couple of people in on this. I was thinking that might come up just because of last night's meeting. And again, I'm minded to grant it just because the discussion that we had last night was they have came to various local partnerships and local area committees for funding for running costs and stuff like that. There's questions over why they need to keep coming back to the partnerships for this money. Because of the difficult circumstances, I wouldn't perhaps want to just totally cut them off from this. It is a farm. As I say, we wouldn't want them to be short this year, but perhaps we contact them as a partnership for more information, and perhaps get some of the officers to look into whether help them with other funding sources, perhaps out with the council, larger funding sources. I know Engage Renfrewshire could perhaps help them with that. I think that came up at last night's meeting as well, and I know Alan's here. I'll bring in Stirling. I see you've got a question.
Well, I actually didn't realise I hadn't used my mic there. Apologies if anyone had heard anything. Not that much was happening. I don't think it's fair really to single out any particular application. However, in saying that, I do think there is some basis for having a discussion about multi-area applications. And if having a discussion about Lamont Farm, I think you would have to necessarily include everything Renfrewshire wide in that as well, because given that we've decided to fund everything 70%, to then fund one particular thing would be a bit unreasonable, and to decide not to fund Lamont Farm specifically would again raise questions for me anyway about groups and wider Renfrewshire that we have also decided to fund.
Yeah, no, again, I take those points. As the chair of this, you all know this is difficult. We're always oversubscribed, whether it was this or the previous local area committee. And that has, I've been quite harsh on that in the past in terms of, do you serve anybody in our area? Do people from our area use your services? I do feel like the applications that are proposed for funding, personally, I do feel they could have an impact on people from our area or our area. But I do agree with your point that perhaps if we're singling Lamont Farm out as a partnership, we need to make more contact with these multi-area applications and I would say, to be fair to some of them have actually said in their applications how many perhaps members of the villages they have in their organisation. Some of them have given really good information, and as I say, that's what I've been quite harsh on in the past. But yeah, perhaps we just need to have a better discussion with them going forward for future years. So I'm happy with that. Councillor Doig.
Right, thanks, Kavina. Yeah, I do think that.
They can't see you.
Oh, sorry. Hi there. I would tend to agree with what Stirling McGee said there, that I don't know why we should necessarily isolate Lamont Farm. They do say in the project they regularly attend local events with their animals, including Lily's Day in Kilbarchan, which is definitely in our area. They also make a prominent point of the fact that they believe in animal therapy for people who have got mental health issues, and that's a big development, I think, and a prominent and welcome development these days. So I think there's definitely positives about their application, and I wouldn't like to see them isolated in some sense. I think they should get the 70% convener. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And I think as well, again, the reason that they've been singled out, and it was the same at last night's meeting, it's because I think just the simple sort of running costs coming back year after year. Some of the other applications are maybe a little bit more specific or have provided more information. So yeah, no, I would be minded to stick with my proposal to grant that funding, but perhaps do a little bit of work with them to see if we can help support them for other funding. So I'm just looking at, I don't believe I've got any more comments. Do we have any more hands up or any more comments? So we're happy to go ahead with the proposal? Fantastic. Agreed. Thank you all. Okay, that's brilliant then. I think that's really good. I think it's positive. 70% is a huge amount, as I say, compared to the situation we were in last year with 40%. So, yeah, great. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming. And sorry for the technical hitches that we've had, but it was the first one, and it went not bad. So,
Thank you, convener. And I'll be stealing that idea for the Johnston and Linwood one, believe you me. Fingers crossed it goes as well.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we have no further items on the agenda, so I will say good night. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, convener.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Oops.
Well done, Natalie.